This is the Jones Chase A to Z of Employment Law, and today I'm doing the letter B, bring your whole self to work. This concept of bringing your whole self to work has been around for about a decade, but has gained traction post-pandemic because of the return to work culture and behaviours. And so on that return to work, there are policies or an ethos or even the values of bring your whole self to work. As an employer, one of the things that you need to think about is, if I want a policy or ethos or concept like this within my workplace, what do I mean by this bring your whole self to work? And do I want it as a policy in the first place? So I'm going to raise some questions now, which I think you should think about when considering that policy idea. Does this mean that you're encouraging your employees to bring their interests, their hopes, desires, fears, romantic life, politics, their personal values, bring them all into work and they're there present, even though they may not be relevant to the work that that individual is doing? Or does it mean that only if relevant to the work that you're undertaking, bring your whole self to work? So if it's irrelevant, then leave it at home. So is it a fully showing up with all personality traits, or is it just if relevant to work? And then who's responsible for ensuring what that concept means? Is that something that will involve consultation with the employees, or is it management driven, board driven, or HR driven, or all those things for that matter? And what happens if there's then any fallout from that policy as drafted? Who takes care of that fallout? Should it even be a policy, as I've said before? And are there any differences in behaviour within the concept of bring your whole self to work, whether that work is mostly home-based, hybrid-based, or all in the office? Because if home-based, there is more a tendency of being your whole self. You're in your comfortable home base. If office-based, is that still the necessary comfort? And hybrid, where do you draw that line as the whole self to work? The other question you must ask is, can an employer promise a safe place of work if they are asking employees to bring their whole self in? And if not, why not? Does that mean that there would be an overlap and of thought or belief, where if one employee aired that thought or belief with other employees, it could create a conflict, and that conflict may result in an unsafe place of work? And does there need to be training which goes along with it, something that identifies the personal and the professional and what is undertaken under this policy and how you should behave? Again, what happens to acts outside the workplace that an employee undertakes in, and if this is shared in work, arguably, is that bringing your whole self to work, bearing in mind it's happened outside of the workplace? Say something that's posted on Facebook or Threads or Twitter. And how does the employer address this concept of authenticity? Is it inauthentic not to bring your whole self to work? And if it is, how is that covered and taken care of in the policy? And in your policy, are you promising or suggesting that the workplace can fulfill all the hopes and dreams of the employees? And if it cannot, again, how do you deal with the problem of setting expectations possibly too high with this concept of bringing your whole self to work? Are work colleagues the new family? Will you discuss that in the policy, or leave it just having defined what you mean by bring your whole self to work? Freedom of speech, how is that impacted in the policy? Because if there's unlimited freedom of speech at work, again, with that thought and belief concept that I've mentioned before, this could create departmentalized employees deciding to stick together in their whole self at work with others that go along with their same thoughts and beliefs. Does an employer really want to go that far in encouraging all thought, all belief to be shared in the workplace? It may emphasize personal polarization, and it may, again, be irrelevant to the work that's being done. And that's why, going through the issues that I've raised here, it's important to think those through before entering into a policy. I'm going to address the 5 pros and the 5 cons of having a bring your whole self to work policy. The pros: it allows for a more transparent atmosphere where employees feel safe, nothing is hidden. It allows HR to target certain issues and be addressed proactively rather than reactively if it knows information in advance. It means the employer can, with skillful management, get the best out of each individual team member, and it can allow for the celebration of differences. And finally, as a pro, it can encourage recruitment in that company because it's an up-to-date concept, and by knowing individuals' values, an employer can try and match those, and in today's society, that's important for people. And now for the 5 cons. It can highlight the differences between values, which can be time-consuming to address if that also encourages conflict. It can encourage grievances which are not relevant to the workplace itself, but to personal life choices. It can create a classification of employee based on tastes that in turn can create conflict. And it can set a level of expectation on what that employer can do for the employee wholly outside the sphere of work which the employer cannot meet. And then finally, it can just mean too much information is shared, and shared more often statistically speaking by junior employees rather than more senior level employees, and so emphasizing a general generation gap, which has been ever more apparent since the pandemic. So, bring your whole self to work. You decide. Thank you.